There were 7-foot men and 5-foot boats. There was the second ever head-to-head. There were upwards of 100 puns. There were marriage proposals. There was a chip tooth. When the Amazing Race comes with a 2-hour episode, it doesn't come to play. But these 8 remaining teams sure do, which is to say, they play ferociously and with seemingly endless energy. I had my reservations about the actual competitive spirit of these teams, but they're all shaping up to be a mighty competent bunch all around. When one member of each team had to construct a giant medieval trebuchet, I just kept thinking how in almost any other season there would surely have been someone who just melted down before working very slowly to figure it out. But we have ourselves a race here, folks. Even those twins, they don't always seem to be the sharpest sailors in the boat, and they stone cold pushed a car for 2 straight legs because they couldn't figure out how to reverse it, but just like every other team left in season 30, they are fighting constantly to stay in this race. In fact, every elimination felt a little painful tonight, because I've grown to like all of these teams much more rapidly than normal. Usually, when someone says they're the most competitive person ever or some variation of the phrase, they're kind of just looking for an excuse to be a bad sport. But these are a bunch of supportive sweethearts for the most part. The couples are always reminding one another how much they love each other, and the friends are always good-natured in both failure and defeat. It's a regular love fest, and it'll take 100 more hours, please. They may make it look easy, but last week's leg was one of the tougher ones I've seen in a while, and this week's double leg included such wonderful features as learning to sail without instructions, medieval construction, sleeping outside on rocks, doing bleachers in a coliseum, and French bocce ball. Okay, that last one wasn't hard, but it was the season's second head-to-head, and though the beloved team that lost would have ultimately lost anyway, I'm with those of you in the comments from the first head-to-head who said you could appreciate its addition much more if it was in the middle of the leg. But we watched the RRRRR race we're given, and tonight we're given double. The teams are flying from Tangier, Morocco, to Nice, France, where they must then drive themselves to Saint-Tropez to rub elbows with the rich and the famous. Just kidding, they're going to be tortured on their roadblock. Who's ready to break wind? One member of each team must take a small optimist sailing dinghy out onto the water and collect the 2 halves of their next clue from 2 buoys. Now, the buoys are pretty far out there, and other than some guy mentioning to them what direction the wind is blowing, they get no instruction on how to steer these itty-bitty boats. Even Christy, whom I suspect may have been bitten by a radioactive spider at some point, has trouble getting the hang of it at first. But the key is to find the direction the wind is blowing, let your sail catch that wind diagonally, and then use the tiller to steer toward the buoys. Alex gets the hang of it quicker than most, and then returns to shore after only getting the first half of his clue. Normally when you read a sentence, you just summarize, and you're right, he says afterward. But here, every single and each makes a really big difference. But for some people, it's not about the language, it's about the fact that sailing is really hard. Evan goes out on the water for Team Yale, and she just cannot get the hang of it, and then a sail comes around and cracks her in the mouth, breaking her front tooth. Y'all, there is a reason I write about this show instead of compete on it, because that would have been it for me. I would have jumped into the Mediterranean Sea and swum directly to a dentist. But Evan barely flinches. I don't even think she cries. She just keeps trying until she finds the wind, gets her clues, and gets back to shore, where Henry says she looks amazing. Cutest ship ever. All together now. A www recap continues on page 2.